right. All right. We're back. It's really weird. I'm going to have to double check to make sure that the intro sounds were working because it seems like they weren't, but we'll find out. It's always exciting when something like that happens. Um, Welcome to the HEF podcast. That's the podcast of the Home Education Foundation, which is an organization started by Brenda Dickinson back in the 90s. And Brenda Dickinson was the woman who helped make home education recognized in Florida. She helped write the bills and worked with the representatives and the legislature to get it passed and recognized. And since then, for the last 40 years, she has been at the forefront of the line, kind of holding near and dear the freedoms of every parent to educate their children as they see fit, and to remind everyone, including our leaders, that our children belong to the parents. They are the responsibility of the parents, and the parents bear the duty of raising them and educating them towards success in life, both physically and spiritually. And that is not necessarily that our children do not belong to the government. We're going to start by saying thank you to our top sponsors. We have Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TPHC Group. We are rounding out those top sponsors, and we're very thankful to have them on with us. They make a lot of the work that we do possible, and it's wonderful to always be arm in arm with those who support the work that we do. And they love to see the home education community thrive. Here in Florida, we do have it different. It's unique and different than it is in other places in our country. And so sometimes that scares people and sometimes it excites them. Sometimes there are people who move here from out of state to enjoy the benefits of the home education scene that we have in front of us. And that's for a good reason, because we have a lobbyist in the Capitol who is working tirelessly. Brenda has been working tirelessly for the last 40 years, and it's wonderful to come alongside her and continue that work. So we want to shout out to our top sponsors and to Brenda. Brenda, have you joined us today? I see you're in my call. You're on our call. I didn't expect you to be here because there's yet another call. So we'll see. As of now, it seems like she's with us, so we'll take it and move forward. Good morning, Crystal. It's not morning anymore.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. So there's a lot to get to. I don't know if you how closely everyone watches or pays attention to it. Probably not, because that's what we're here for. That's what we do. We're the dorks and the nerds who, when a bill drops, we're chomping at the bit to read it and argue about it before it sees the light of day. So there's a 140-page bill that has dropped in the Senate on Friday. What a lovely way to spend a weekend, is poring over word by word and letter by letter and line by line that bill to see what it does in fact and what we'll be watching for. So what we'll do is we'll go over some of that. We'll go over some of that with you. There you are, Brenda.
Brenda,
Oh,
Our meeting was moved to 12:30, so I may leave again.
Yeah, we got time. Maybe we'll be able to wrap up in time. We'll see how fast I can talk. So the new bill that's dropped is SB 7030, and it is rather large. And it does, its primary focus for this particular bill is the scholarship programs. One of the big picture things that it does is it moves a lot of the administration statutes over to one particular statute area. That way, the administration of the FES scholarships and the administration of the FTC scholarships aren't doubly mentioned all over the place in all of those different programs. They're going to consolidate it into one statute area, and that statute area is going to be 1002.421. And that's going to basically lay the groundwork for all of the guidelines. How do I participate? How do I enroll? When I enroll, what is the responsibility of the scholarship funding organization? What is that? And so they don't have different responsibilities and all the different statutes for how to onboard someone. They're kind of consolidating it into one. So I think that's a good move. It's going to clean up the statutes. It's going to make them a little bit more easy to understand. There are some cool things that are implemented. One of the big things that this program does is it seeks to implement, to maintain the stability and operations of public schools, including charter schools in each school district. The department shall use funds as appropriate to ensure each stabilization. So there's more things that this is focused on than just home education. So that's important to note right out of the gate. There's a lot of interplay between being a home education student and registering with the county, and then deciding, no, I wanted to do PEP and try the scholarship. And then there are families who are in public school, and for whatever their reason, whether they just don't like the public schools, or they feel like they've gotten bad teachers, or their kid is being bullied and they want other options, and whatever the reasons are, they want to pull their child. But then there may be a miscommunication between the unenrollment of the public school, and if they don't use that right code for this, and then once the child unenrolls and they get with this scholarship funding organization, what if they change their minds and go back? And how is all that tracked? And as of right now, it's tracked, but it's a little intermittent and inconsistent, right? And so what this does is it's going to give every student in the scholarship program a student identification number, and that number is not going to be their social security number. It's going to be an identification number that allows the student's presence and enrollment track to be easily identified, right? So that we don't have a scholarship student in PEP having a scholarship, then withdrawing from the scholarship and back enrolling back into public school, but then that wasn't communicated effectively. So then we have money in the scholarship student's account that isn't being spent and is stuck there. And what happens when they're enrolled in both? And so then the school is drawing down funds for the child, but then also the money has gone into the PEP account. And so there's all this extra money sitting around in places unused. And so this bill is aimed at cleaning up that specific problem. And as it does so, it aims to do a couple of other things. And some of it we like and some of it we don't. Imagine that. So we'll dive into what some of those are. One of the things that I just think is confusing is for the parents who have applied for PEP this year, for next year, the parents who have applied for the 2025-2026 school year in that application window, which is now. So if you haven't applied and you want to apply, this is important to you. But it says a parent who applies for the scholarship by April 30th, 2025 does not need to submit a new application. That's good. Pursuant to the requirements of this section. So this, when enacted, would become a law July 1st. So that's a good clarification that they're putting this in there. By the time the organization is required to send its verification list to the department, the parent must provide documentation required for eligibility. It doesn't say to whom or how. There's, a lot left open in that statement. It'd be nice to have it clarified, but I think it's only for this year. So it's one of those things where if we can survive this year, it doesn't need to be updated. As long as they know what they're doing and they do it right and there's no hiccups, cross your fingers on that one.
Oh, but don't you think Step Up will address that in the purchasing guide?
I think that's what they're going to rely on, is that to be addressed in the purchasing guide.
For AAA, we only talk about Step Up because we have more contact with them, but there is another scholarship funding organization, and they have to follow the same purchasing guide. So,
yeah, they already have in the handbook a lot of requirements and instructions above and beyond what's stated in statute. So I'm sure they'll have a plan for how to specify to
He
parents.
can't possibly put all that detail in statute.
Right. So this is a lengthy bill and probably lends to a lengthy discussion. But time just slips forward, so I'm gonna try to keep moving as quickly as possible. And Brenda, I know you can't see it, but up on the screen I have the bill up, so we're coming through the language where people can see it.
Okay,
But
well, we
yeah.
must tell them that we spent our weekend not only reading it individually, but 4 hours on the phone yesterday discussing it.
Yes, yes. This is the product of many hours, many hours. So one interesting bit is around line 760, repayment of the scholarship, and I think this is going to raise a lot of eyebrows. Payment of the scholarship by the eligible nonprofit scholarship funding organization shall be by funds transfer, including but not limited to debit cards, electronic payment cards, or any means of payment the department deems commercially viable or cost effective. There's a couple of key things to notice here is that the payment of the scholarship shall be by funds transfer. So the funds transfer is the means, and then that can be broken down into other ways of doing the funds transfer. But the word shall is a must. It means that it shall be this way, so that's important to keep in mind. It'll be by funds transfer, including but not limited to debit cards, electronic payment cards, or any means of payment the department deems commercially viable or cost effective. So the department does have a way in here and does have guidance over the choice. And that's important to know that the scholarship funding organization will have its ideas about how to do it most effectively, but then the department will also have a way in. They'll have a say so. So when and if you don't like this method, I know that we have had moments before where they did the debit card thing, and it was if we just call it a nightmare.
People had issues with it. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mess. Let's just say it that way. That's gently as possible. It was a bit of a mess. I'm gonna just caveat that with there's no method that's perfect, and every one of them has its pros and cons. And I think a lot of people would like to just be reimbursed. Like, that's just straightforward and simple. That's really all we care about at that point is I have an education plan for my child. I need these funds. Get them to me. And I think that's what we care about most. But there's a lot of details that come into play in that. But I'm going to be keeping my eye on this section of it to see how it turns out. We do have questions about this. Is this the direction they're trying to take? Is going back to the debit cards? I know that one of the SFOs has brought on new leadership for things like reimbursements and stuff like that. And we have concerns. But bottom line is, we want the SFOs to have flexibility to do ways that are more efficient and better for us as parents. And unless we give them room for that trial and error and options, we only get one way. And so I'd like to see that be innovative and effective. But in doing so, we're going to probably also run into some hiccups, right? Hold on for the ride. Let's see here. Just doing it. Funds. Yep. Okay, that's not anything. Let's go with this. Scrolling down to all my notes. Okay, there's an introduction of some new language to this section on background checks, background screening requirements, and it says in line 876, each owner or operator or an individual providing services under 1002.394 or 1002.395, and those are the FESUA, the Scholarship for Unique Abilities, the Florida Family Empowerment Scholarship, and the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship, PEP, says that each owner or operator or an individual providing services under these two statutes prior to employment or engagement to provide services are to undergo a level 2 background screening as provided under Chapter 435. That is probably going to raise eyebrows as well. Um, we've seen a lot of conversations emerging about protecting children, and home education, when you're teaching your own kids, um, there's no need for you to be background checked to teach your own kids. It's whenever there's a new environment, and daycares that are run in residential areas see this kind of issue as well, where there are additional regulations and things that they have to go through to be one of those, because they're not handling their own kids, they're handling other children, and there's a certain level of protection and safety that they're aiming for. And I understand what they're aiming for. I'm not sure this language does it, but it is something to kind of keep our eyes on as things do evolve. I think what they're trying to do is operate with transparency and operate with accountability. So they're wanting to ensure that the scholarship funds that are spent in a ways where the scholarship funds are not aiding trafficking. That's very important. We've got a big conversation right now with Doge and Elon Musk and efficiency, and what are some of these programs that we've been accidentally funding and all of this. And so you can see where they're trying to put safeguards on a program to ensure that it is transparent, so people know who those people are who are teaching other people's kids and where. And you've got accountability, and I think that's the direction that they're trying to move toward. This is not to say that your freedoms are infringed upon by any nature, but it might create some fiscal problems for some of the smaller programs that do operate in this way, and are very, very low budget. So you may see some of those costs of some of those programs go up a little bit to compensate for this. But there's a lot of surrounding impact or practical implication impact that some of these programs are going to have, and I think we are scheduled to have a conversation with them on Tuesday to kind of go over some of these details. So we'll see more about what we come back with. Jennifer says certified teachers are already background checked to be certified. Would they need additional background checks to be a provider? No. You would already have this satisfied, right? So there you go. There's more. Let me skip ahead and see. Boop, boop. Yeah. There's something that we thought, and I don't think this is new. This is actually a carryover from pulling some of the statutes from the 394 and 395 and bringing the admin portions of those over to 1002.421. This is a pullover for that. So it says a student is not eligible to receive. Hold on. Stacy has a question that's still on the background checks. Would the background check be only for direct pay providers? So that's a great question. So the way that it works currently, according to the statute, is the scholarship funding organization houses the money that the parent uses, and then it's the job and responsibility of the scholarship funding organization to verify that the purchases meet are being spent on eligible expenses. And so in order to be a provider and be considered an eligible expense, you would need to satisfy the background check requirements.
Yeah, and that's not just for direct pay. That would be also if someone submitted a reimbursement, because they still have to vet your provider by the same standards. There's not different standards for direct pay versus reimbursement.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues that we see here is, ooh, what a heavy lift. How in the world? Like I understand this from a standpoint of the public schools, charters, and private schools, because they have a facility. Anyone on the grounds has to pass a certain you're working directly with the children. So I get it. Everyone's kind of coming to this place. But now what you're having in a home education environment is all of these places out in various, all of these programs are out in various places. And so then how do you monitor the coming and going of any particular person in any of those programs who have contact with the children for an hour, but not the rest of the time? And so there's a lot to keep in mind that is going to be impacted by this. So I'm not sure. So if we are getting YMCA reimbursed, they would need to be background checked. I can't speak for the YMCA, but I would think that um, there's background screening as a part of their hiring process already. It would just need to match this level. Um, so
Stacy had a question. Yikes, the
Mhm.
tutor would have to provide the parent a copy of their background check and the parent submit it with a reimbursement? Agree. Ooh, said.
Yeah, I don't. So that's a question of logistics, right? The tutor already has, if they're a certified private tutor, so they're a certified teacher already, and they're tutoring, they already have the level 2 background check, and they um, have met that requirement. So, as a means of meeting that requirement, providing them with your certification might be deemed enough because
Yeah,
it's a package deal, right?
the difference there though is not all, like, the electives section of the purchasing guide allows for tutors that are not certified teachers.
Yeah.
So then,
Yeah, this gets
yeah,
into the other issue, which is, how easy is it for an individual to get their own background screening? We've done a little bit of research on background screenings, and it is not so easy for an individual to just go and get their own individual background screening. Some background screening companies, and some of the very legit ones, will only take on clients that are corporate clients that are background screening their employees and vetting them for hiring positions. And so the question then is like, are you able to background screen yourself as an individual? And how easily available is that? And that, hey, look, that might be a new market that pops up if you're thinking about going out and investing in some opportunities. This may be one to look at. It's going to be a growth industry.
individual background screenings.
Yeah, yeah.
Jamie Niswanger says this makes sense. This is outside homeschooling. You are paying an individual to school the child, and they need to have standardized standards.
Yeah, there's
A lot of these are going to operate in a home. And the concern is that how are parents going to get any information about the background of the people that you're taking your children to? I mean, I don't know what you discussed before I joined, but a lot of this discussion came up because micro schools are beginning to really, really thrive in this state. And there's no appetite by the legislature to shut them down because they want to expand opportunities and innovation. And, but the concern is, can an illegal start one? Could a pedophile start one? Could somebody that, has a problem with, their background and they've done other crimes, can they start up a micro school in their home? And how are you to know anything about them? And in Tallahassee, there was a sting and they picked up I think it was about 30 people. I was going to Google it before this and I forgot. But one of them was a surgeon here in Tallahassee. So you can't tell just by looking at somebody, being around them, whether they've really got a hidden problem or not. And so it's just one step in trying to protect children. And the state does have a responsibility to protect children, especially if they're giving them money to set these programs up. So we know that the home education instructional programs that have been in business for 20 years, 10 years, mostly meet at churches, and they do require to have their volunteers screened. So, they're trying to balance not enough accountability and too much regulation. I think will come out okay in the end. It's a little up in the air at this point.
Right. And
Yeah.
Mimi brings up a good point. She says, I believe the parent should be worried about the background checks. Homeschool gives parent control. The parent should be worried about this, not the SFO. So I think if I understand what you're saying correctly, I was thinking about this the other day, and it's, the environment that we lovingly call homeschooling is shifting. The identity of homeschooling is shifting. Um, and I think that in a stroke of brilliance that Brenda had back in 1984, she named, in Florida at least, it's called home education because school and education are different. And this is going somewhere, trust me. That's not just a history lesson. But the word education and the word schooling are different. We've kind of lovingly call it homeschooling, public school, private school, homeschool, yay. The challenge is that what that means is so wild and different, and it's not at all the public school has come home, and now you do public school at home. But we have a lot of public school teachers who are disenfranchised with the system, and they're like, hey, I want a better option. I think I could do better if I were free to be more nimble and make my own decisions and do it my way. And it's like, okay, cool. I don't disagree with you. So be free to do that. And so you start to see all of these little mini school-like environments pop up, and they're not exactly homeschooling.
Yeah, it's no longer a parent teaching their own kids. It's someone else having parents drop off their kids to a home.
Yeah, and it's
different.
Its function and form is different, but whenever it's being paid for out of the scholarship program, it's all lumped into one bucket. And so you're starting to see anything and everything that just isn't public school or private school or charter school started to be called homeschool. And it's like, it's a catch-all for everything. And that's kind of our fault, I think, for not being more engaging with our legislators over the years and helping them to see truly what homeschooling looks like in its wild and free forms, and why, it's actually not a scary thing that a parent purchases a kayak to go do science lessons and learn things, and that freaks them out sometimes.
By our fault, you mean like the home education community at large?
At large, yeah. I think that's what I mean, everyone there's 150,000 homeschooling
because it looks different for every family.
It does.
And that's difficult for the legislators to conceptualize.
So now back to what Mimi was saying, the parent should be the one concerned about this, because now you've got all of these little pop-up environments everywhere that are homeschooling. Hey, I started a homeschool. You guys can come participate in my homeschool that I started. And, a parent might, coming from a public school system or a private school, and they go, hey, that's really expensive. I was thinking about trying some other options. And then they go, oh, you started a little mini school over there. Let me check out your mini school. You're right. The parent is the one concerned about whether or not who that person is. I heard that Sally down on the cul-de-sac she's the lady with the big yard. Yeah, and the trampoline. Yeah, she's teaching classes now. Okay, let me go see that. And we go check that out. And who is she? I don't know. Did she just move here from out of state? Who are her relatives? Are any of them nefarious? Is she really an underground trafficker? I don't know. Nobody knows any of these things. I would like to think not. But the parents are the ones who, they should be
vetting those just out of safety for their own kids.
Yeah.
The one caveat I would add to that is that people who are very, very new to anything other than public education, they are easily, how do I say this? They may not have their guard up as much, right? They may be overly trusting because they don't understand how different that is than typical homeschooling. And so I would be concerned, not that I'm disagreeing with you, but I do have a concern that there are going to be parents taken advantage of as all these new programs pop up, and it's not being accurately presented to them. And there's concerns that are not being openly discussed. And I think when the money becomes involved with the scholarship, that's why they're wanting to regulate the safety of this, because now
that and
the
there's one more.
legislators feel a responsibility for how the funds are being used.
I was going
So
to say there's one more step. If the money were to go directly to the parents and the SFO is not involved, then the SFO has nothing to worry about. If the SFO was simply a bank account that the money went into and then the parent could just access it however they will, then the SFO is not responsible. You know, but because the SFO is put into the position of verifying the expenditures, that changes everything for the SFO. So now they do also care that, right, because it's happening on their watch too, that they didn't verify that a person was, background checked correctly, or that did or didn't happen properly. So there's a level of accountability that can be held to with this now that wasn't in place. So there's pros and cons.
I want to throw Michelle Matthew Wilson's comment in here, because she points out part-time tutors can also be approved with just a degree in the subject. And that is true. So we're not just talking about electives, but also any part-time tutors may not already have a level 2 background check because they may not be a certified teacher. So there are tons of families that are going to be impacted by this if this language goes through, in terms of suddenly your tutor is no longer qualified for scholarship funds unless they are able to go somewhere and get this background check. So this is something to watch. And, Jason and Brenda are discussing this obviously with all the people involved with this bill, because there's a lot of nuances that need to be kind of hammered out for how this is actually going to play out when they implement it.
Yeah, I don't inherently trust anybody. So that's where I stand. And I think the SFOs are placed in that precarious kind of situation because they are told that their responsibility and duty is to verify the purchases. And so it's now kind of quote unquote happening on their watch. So the question is that age-old question of accountability and transparency means oversight, but oversight, how much oversight is too much? And I think that it's very important to keep an eye on this and watch this. Very little accountability means it's wanton spending, and I've already seen some pretty wild and crazy things.
Yeah,
so
we have seen in the first 2 years, parents definitely get taken advantage of from things that were misrepresented by providers and all kinds of things. So there are concerns that need to be addressed. Whether this actually accomplishes that is a different question.
Yeah, and of course, like the feasibility of it is the other question. Like, well, if you're a provider in the marketplace and you're just allowed or not allowed to be a provider based off whether or not you can meet this criteria, then that's one thing. But then you're limiting parents' options of what they can get reimbursed to only the things that are in the provider marketplace, and you can't do that. And so there's a lot of tertiary impacts that it's going to have, and we're going to have those important conversations with leadership, and we're going to talk with them and discuss the practical problems that we see that it creates, and see if there's a better way to word things or put around them, or what they're trying to accomplish. And yeah, just want you to know we're seeing it and we're watching it, and that's the purpose of mentioning it here, so that you don't see these words on your own and then go, oh my goodness, is no one talking about this? Well, we are in fact talking about
Jennifer
it. So
says there almost needs to be a scholarship provider credential issued by the state that includes a background check, like certified teachers are required to have.
Yeah, and I don't love or hate that idea, but again, it comes with its all additional issues of like, okay, well then, are you limiting parents' options to go and do and choose what they would want to spend it on? You've got this, 70-year-old woman who teaches music, and she's absolutely amazing. She is absolutely amazing. How steep of a curve, or how steep of a dive does she have to go through to be a credentialed by the state
Right.
provider.
And how long does it take?
And how long
Because
does that take?
yeah,
Right.
if it takes half the school year to get that process done, then
Yeah.
you
Well,
don't
if
have
that
your
was
two
your
the year.
kid's senior year, then you obviously don't have, there it goes. It'll not happen. So little things like
Tina
that.
says Checker allows you to run a personal background check,
Yep.
$65.
Yeah. I saw that.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
look, we'll mention them if they want to become donors, supporters.
if parents are, if this discussion has kind of stirred up concern for you and you want to vet someone yourself, you can go to Checker and do a personal background check.
There are some programs that do offer it, yes. And I do believe that was one of the ones I came across in my research as well. Thank you, Dina. So moving forward, a student is not, this was something that caught my eye. It's in line 1019. A student is not eligible to receive a scholarship payment if the private school fails to meet the deadlines. So there are deadlines that they have to meet. This was in there already, but it's something that they are moving from one statute to another. So it looks like it's new language, but it's not new language. But I do think of this something that's kind of odd. I don't understand why we would punish the student and make them not eligible to receive the scholarship if the private school fails to meet the deadlines. That seems punitive to the student for something that's outside of their control. So I do just want to raise that. I know we're not the private school people, but it's one of those things that, little things like that.
It's still a valid concern though. Like,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
not something even the parents can control, other than what private school they choose. But
yeah. All right. So we've got umbrella schools that struggle to be eligible to receive the scholarship, the PEP scholarship. And, this is that highlighted piece that's one of the pieces that kind of keeps them from being able to meet the criteria. So we're just looking if we're in the middle of revamping a bunch of stuff, like, is there a way that we can get them included in the scholarship program? I'd like to see that if that's possible. If the money's supposed to follow the student and the parent's spending on eligible purchases, and that's one of the things that a parent wants to do, and we're making everything else under the sun available to them.
I was going to say, they're letting it be spent on pretty much everything else. So why not?
So I think that we need to address those things and get those umbrellas as eligible for the scholarships, because we're making everything else under the sun eligible, and why would we leave them out? That makes no sense. So you're on our list. We love you guys. We see what you do, and we appreciate you. Where else? No, that was just something that I highlighted for something else. All right, that's the beginning of that. Let's see here. I'm gonna scroll. Okay, so this bill does in fact touch on the definition of a home education instructional program, as does the bill that we are running with Representative Duggan and with Senator McLean. And so we do have questions about, if they're addressing it in this bill, what ends up happening to our bills? Do we just need to bring our language into this bill? And
this here is a typo, right? Because it says home education program.
Yeah, this is one of the typos that we found, and we've brought to their attention. We fixed it in our bill, but they didn't fix it in this bill, so we're going to also let them know about that. Home education programs do not charge tuition and fees. You can enroll in that with
just
your
to
county.
Clarify,
the
for
county
those
cannot charge you for homeschool.
Yeah, just to clarify, home education program is just the typical program that you're considered to be in if you register as a home educator with your county.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a parent that has, sent your letter of intent to your county to home educate, you are in a home education program according to statute. Home education instructional programs are the ones they're trying to reference here, which are the a la carte class programs that serve home education families. So this, obviously you don't have to pay tuition just as a home educating parent. So that needs to be addressed here in the language.
So, and along that lines, we like what's here. This is what's in the purchasing guide to a large extent. That what's in the purchasing guide is largely what Brenda researched back when HB1 first hit and PEP was first placed in the scholarship. We wanted to make sure that if this is a scholarship meant for homeschooling families, that they're going to be able to be eligible to spend it in ways they were already spending it in homeschooling.
Brenda talked to the leaders of tons of these types of programs to come up with criteria that included as many of them as possible.
Yeah. And most of the home education instructional programs, if not all of the ones that Brenda talked to, were programs in which the families were leaving their home to go get community together, socialize and learn and teach, and they were learning together. As of now, there is no formal home education instructional definition program. That's correct, Jamie. Not yet. Our bills
Not in
seek to do
statute,
that.
no.
That's
The only
right.
definition for that was in Step Up's purchasing guide.
Mm-hmm. And then what we're looking for now at this point is with the explosion of every single program that it's almost like the SFOs looked at that definition that was there and thought instructional program, and they had no mind or thought given to whether they're home education instructional programs or not. They just saw it as a really neat category that had no definition in statute, and that definition in purchasing guide was wildly flexible. And so what we sought to do was to kind of carve out a little bit more clarity, right? I want to understand what those are, because as things do expand and blow up, it's the natural reaction for people to see big change and then react to that in ways that, we don't like it sometimes. So
yeah, we don't want these
look at last year, we
programs.
saw immediately like kayaks. Why are you buying kayaks? It's like, that's pretty obvious to anyone who's a home educator. But to those on the outside, it's not. Go ahead.
What we were trying to do in preserving the original definition, which, as Jamie pointed out, was never actually in statute. It existed in the purchasing guide. So
That's correct.
statute references the term home education and instructional program as an eligible expense, but it was not actually defined in statute. The definition was only in the purchasing guide, which, as Jason mentioned, they very quickly started changing to allow all kinds of other programs to come in. So our intention in trying to restore the original definition was just to make sure that the programs that term was intended to reference don't get pushed out by all these additional regulations, and don't have that they don't suffer in the end for additional things being pushed onto that term that were not meant to be included.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're trying to restrict other things, but we just want to make sure that those programs don't suffer in the end.
Right. And in much the same way that the homeschool scholarship was coming into Florida, like it or not, Brenda saw that and thought, hey, well, if it's coming in, let's at least separate it out from home education and call it a different thing and regulate it in a different way and treat it as a different thing. So that's where the PEP, Personalized Education Program, came from, because it's quote unquote homeschooling, but it's technically different. So if you don't like it, you don't like how it ends up looking, you can bounce. We're wanting to pull the same move here so that the traditional legacy home education instructional programs are not unduly restricted if restrictions come on some of these larger school-like programs that are popping up. And it's like, hey, we have 150 students in our homeschool. It's like,
right. And if everything is lumped together in one category, then the restrictions are going to be applied to everything. So that's what we're
everything in one category.
Yeah.
So our goal is to kind of carve out, and this is a good start. But even our bill doesn't have that carve out yet. We're actually working on the amendment right now. I will be finishing up some of that work today as I coordinate with staff. So a difference between PEP and UA has a difference in language regarding having to be enrolled in an approved post-secondary program within 3 years or remaining funds are revoked. PEP does not have this stipulation, but UA does. Hold on. This seems very discriminatory, especially when many UA kids may never be able to accomplish this, but they are still learning on their level. So PEP students, when this bill drops, we haven't gotten there yet, but when this bill drops, the one thing that I think that you missed is that PEP students are going to lose their funds when they graduate.
Yeah, it will no longer remain accessible to PEP students after graduation to use for post-secondary expenses. It will be as soon as you graduate, your scholarship is done for PEP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
UA, they are still allowing access after graduation, I believe, because they understand that there are still needs, some of those students have special needs that continue beyond graduation. but it is not going to be the case for PEP students
That's
anymore.
correct. Yeah. And while some may argue that that's discriminatory, I think would all also argue that that's for a good reason. So we're not upset about that. Um, let's see here. I think that, God bless those kids and their parents, and they need that extra help. So power to them. Where did it go? Scholarships. Yeah. So
there are going to be a lot of parents really shocked by that, I think, if they read the language of this bill, because there are a lot of parents that are intentionally letting the funds roll over so that they can use them for post-secondary expenses as PEP, and that if this language goes through, that is not even going to be an option anymore. So
that's great. So there's a couple of things that they clean up. One of them is that there were reports of some parents who would apply for the scholarship just to kind of be in it, but we don't intend to use it. We don't intend to use it because we're not sure. We just want to apply for it and be awarded, but we're not going to spend the funds yet. We want to wait and see what happens as it moves forward. And while that may be an interesting thought, now if there's a period of one fiscal year in which the account is inactive, those funds revert back to the program. So that's something to keep in mind that will no longer be a thing people can do, is just apply for a scholarship and not use it.
I had a question about that language at first. So just to reiterate, it's if you are completely inactive for that first year. So if you have not spent any of your funds, they will not roll over into the next year. You will just basically, your scholarship will be revoked because you didn't use it for the entire year. That does not apply to parents that are only spending part of the funds because you're not inactive.
I was going to say to be very clear, your funds will roll over from year to year.
It's only if you're completely inactive for that entire year.
But if you are inactive, you're just sitting on it, waiting to see. The idea is that you don't need them, so they're going to revert back after one fiscal year of inactivity. So that's important. But let's take a look at this. In 3712, number 4, a student's scholarship no longer remains in force due to any of the reasons in paragraph B. So what this is saying is, up here, a student's scholarship account must be closed, and any remaining funds shall revert to the state after a student's scholarship no longer remains in force due to any of the reasons in paragraph B. So now let's go up to paragraph B and see what those reasons would be. What those reasons would be in paragraph B: the organization determines that the student is not eligible for the program renewal. The Commissioner of Education suspends or revokes. I don't know what you got to do to make that happen, but please don't. The student's parent has forfeited participation in the program due to failure to comply. The student uses the scholarship for full-time tuition and fees in an eligible private school, and then they enroll back in a public school. Or 5, the student graduates from high school or attains 21 years of age, whichever comes first. So what this is saying is that a student's scholarship account must be closed if the student graduates high school or reaches the age of 21, whichever comes first. So PEP not being able to use leftover funds after graduation is a huge change. It is a huge change.
And a lot of parents, like I said, a lot of parents that I've seen in groups on Facebook are kind of strategically allowing funds to roll over because they're planning to use them. That's no longer going to be, I mean, you can let them roll over to the next year, but it's no longer going to be a thing where you can roll them over until after graduation. Brevard Homeschool Evaluations commented, those PEP kids can attempt bright futures. So I think this is what the people who compose the language of this bill are kind of getting at, that like, if you were in public school, your funding given to the county for you ends when you graduate. And so I think in their minds, they're thinking this is fair. When you graduate, you're no longer a student. And so, good luck to you. It's on you to figure out your post-secondary, like it always has been for students in the public school. I think that's kind of probably where they're coming from on this. So yes, you could still attempt Bright Futures as a PEP kid, but yes, also to Deline that this is going to be a major change for those parents who were in their minds planning to have these funds accessible when their kid graduates. So
Yeah, if you were sandbagging them, for sure.
yeah.
And moving forward, sorry to keep having to push the conversation forward, but time just slips so fast. I don't think anybody's even going to watch this 1 hour deep dive into the 70/30 bill,
And
but
we haven't even made it like that far into the bill. I mean, this is a
we're
very,
almost through it now. I
are
skipped
we
a little
now?
bit in the middle. Yeah, I
It's a
skipped a
long,
little bit.
if you missed the beginning, this is a 140-page bill.
Yeah.
So
So
it's dense.
3837. This is interesting. I like this part. The Auditor General shall periodically examine the records of school districts and other agencies as appropriate to determine compliance with law, state board of education rules, et cetera, et cetera. So this gives the Auditor General that purview. Well, now the eligible nonprofit scholarship funding organizations are placed in here
They
as
can
well.
also be periodically
Yeah, so
examined.
essentially being treated like a school district, which is interesting. I'm not. That might imply too much. I'm not. I don't mean it like that. Um, there is an entity with direct oversight that will be auditing them for this, which is great because now as a parent you have someone who's over them that you can go to and say
Right. If
things
you
to.
feel like they're not in compliance, there
Yeah,
is someone who's in charge of ensuring that they
there
are.
you go. Yes, absolutely. So it's a big bill. There's a lot going on in it. So much so that I had to color code things just to get through it. And
Yeah, there's a lot in
okay.
here.
One
It's
thing
kind
that
of,
was more, I do think this is an issue that we need to talk about and address. It is with the student learning plan, and I almost missed it right here. Sorry to interrupt you, but right here before the end. The student learning plan means a customized learning plan developed by a parent at least annually to guide instruction for his or her student to identify the goods and services needed to address the academic needs of his or her student. We think that word needs to be changed to educational needs, the educational needs of the student, because it's not just about academics. So that I think that's a big deal. Personally, I think that's a I don't,
yeah, because
I'm thinking
depending
they
on
may
how
have
they
just
begin to
accidentally.
define how they define academics, does that
Mhm.
now exclude character building things or extracurricular things? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate you saying that.
Did I see correctly that it changes from 4 payments to 10 payments?
You
Stacy
did.
asked.
You did
Yes.
see that.
We
It's
didn't address
going.
that.
Yeah. It's going from a.
It'll be a
Uh.
monthly system for disbursement. So
Yeah.
roughly a monthly system. They have some kind of plan where they're going to double up on the first month so that
Mhm.
you have kind of a front load of funds in your account. And then from there, it's going to be a roughly a monthly disbursement. And the reason for that, am I allowed to explain the reason for that?
No.
Okay. So
No.
don't worry
Because
about the reason for that. But they're trying to make this entire program more transparent and like how things are run.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're part of that is switching to monthly payments, which again
Yeah.
is
I
going
mean,
to be
I
a
would.
massive change for parents, and it's going to mean that you're going to need to plan your purchases differently, obviously.
Yeah. I would softly say that the reason for it has to do with the cross checks. And money that just got missing or was sitting around unused.
That's pretty much all I was going to say
Yeah.
is they want
Okay.
to be able to re-verify periodically and make sure that the cross checks are happening appropriately before funds are released. So
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with accidental. They're not targeting parents with this.
no.
It's the accidental communication between the SFO and the district, and when this happened, who dropped the ball there, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, well, it's like 4 months since we checked in with it last because that wasn't on our to-do list. And they're like, okay, cool, we're going to do it monthly then. And
Yeah.
so they're trying to be more
It's really more of a
on top of it.
it's really more of a thing that they're putting on the SFOs where they want
Yeah.
to force more opportunities for verification.
Yeah,
before
this is
funds
going
are
to be
released.
a significant change, Dina. Monthly payments is an issue for providers too. I think one of the issues that this creates is, a parent who is getting a quarterly installment, that first installment was large enough to get started, and now the
Right,
first installment is going to be not large enough per se to get started in the same way. It's
right. For
still a
example,
decent sum of money.
if you use a home education instructional program or a tutor or anybody that wants you to give a down payment up front, you're now not going to have as much available up front. So that's going to be a concern.
Hmm.
And I think the providers in the end are going to have to adjust their billing to account for that if they're wanting people to be able to use the scholarship. So it's going to be a lot of changes on all fronts, I think.
Yeah. What's the use of being frugal with money that disappears if you don't use it? See, those are the behavioral incentives that I don't know that they realize they're creating with some of these changes. I think they're trying to solve a problem, but maybe inadvertently creating fiscal behavioral incentives and kind of behavioral structures and incentivizing poor behavior with it, perhaps. But
I just want to quickly address a couple of these comments that
sure.
kind of hit the same thing. So on Delene's point, just to clarify, it's not going to disappear from year to year if you're active in your account. It'll just disappear at graduation. So if you want to save up for like a big curriculum the next year that you know is going to be expensive, you should still be able to do that. Your funds can roll over.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of rolls into Sabrina's question, which is, I have funds sitting in my student's account. Will we not be
Mm-hmm.
released funds if we have funds in there?
Mm-hmm.
You will. They're still releasing the same amount. It's still rolling over year to year. It's just they're going to be releasing them on a different schedule. So you're not going to be penalized for having funds already in your account. The limit, I believe, is still 22,000 for total. If you have in your account, they no longer release, but that was
24.
always 24,000. That was always the limit. That's not new.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as you're active in your student's account each year, and you're not just letting sandbagging the funds for an entire year and not using the account, then you will still be able to use them up to graduation. It's only the graduation that they're going to be disappearing, and then the disbursement schedule is going to be changing if this goes through.
That's correct, Sabrina. If this bill
If
goes
this
through
bill
the way
goes
that it
through,
is,
yes, Sabrina, they
yeah.
are removing for PEP. Once you graduate, you no longer have access to funds.
Mm-hmm.
If this goes through, yeah.
Yeah. So and so this is where I think it gets into some of the other, like I submit for a reimbursement for $300, but I only had $100 left, and the next month hasn't dropped. Are they going to deny the reimbursement? Are they going to partially do the reimbursement? Are they
Given
going to
their
delay
current
the
system,
processing of it? Because they still have time periods that they have to process
yeah.
the reimbursements within certain time periods. So
So
I don't know the kind of
given their
mess.
current system, Jason, right now you can't even submit a reimbursement if you don't have enough funds in your account for the full reimbursement.
Then they
It
might
will
just do
not
that.
let you submit.
Mm-hmm. They might just continue doing that. And okay, that's probably the way that they'll handle it, and that makes sense. But there's just a lot.
But that hits to what Dina said, which is curriculum can cost $1,000+ just for one kid. So if you're wanting to buy your curriculum at the start of the year and it's
and your
more than what you have,
$720 drops into your account for your monthly installment. I guess you got to wait another month to even
you won't
do
be able
that.
to purchase. Well, you could purchase the curriculum, but you wouldn't be able to submit your reimbursement for it until you had enough in your account. So you would have to front load the cost out of pocket for that.
Now, all of this, let me just wrap up with this. All of this is conjecture. Like, this is not the law. This is not the final form that it will take. This is a proposed bill. So it's important not to get ahead of ourselves and start going on Facebook and saying, oh my goodness, this is the way it is now, blah, blah, blah. It's not yet. It's not the way it is now. This is a proposed bill. This is basically like a public discussion of where they would like to go with it.
But it may be a good time
to
reach out to your senators if you're concerned about things you see in here.
Yeah, this is the Senate's bill, and the House bill does something different as well. So it's a they're gonna have to negotiate and go back and forth and do this. And I do think that if you want to weigh in on this, state that you read it and you don't like the 10 monthly installments, and that's going to create issues, and be specific about what those issues might be. What some of
If
the
you book specific curriculum you need to purchase that's above the cost of what you would get in a monthly dispersal, or there's a program that needs a down payment, be
right,
specific.
yeah,
Stacy, okay, on the bright side, it includes digital devices. Does
yeah.
this one?
It does, in fact, can include digital devices, and I think that's great. So that's the beautiful thing about this is go with your olive branch out and say thank you for this, thank you for that. Please fix this. I think that's critical in the way that we
Yeah.
communicate. Thank you for this. Digital devices are in. It's been wonderful to finally see digital devices hit PEP. It was the last scholarship that just didn't have them. Thank you for fixing that. We look so forward to that, and then
Yeah, that's
you
a
know.
great point, because if you come in just straight with the negative, all angry,
Mhm.
it's you're going to have them on the defensive right away.
I say
So if
thank
you
you
can
for the
go in thanking them for
transparency.
the good things, yeah.
Thank you for the transparency and accountability that you are attempting to provide to the scholarship program. We appreciate that. We have one major concern, and then boom, list it, like put it in there. I think
Yeah,
that's a
and
great way.
this is SPB 7030 if you want to reference it
Mhm.
when you're reaching out to your senators.
Yeah.
Um, and the senators would be the ones, because this is a Senate bill, so it's not the House representatives. You would want to reach out to your senator for your district.
Hmm. Yeah, and so then the House bill, there is a PKB. There's a proposed pre-K pre-K 12 bill that would address some things in here as well. And so what's going to end up happening is the House is going to have their language, the Senate's going to have their language. They're going to talk back and forth. They're going to put it on the floor. They're going to go back and forth in committees. They're going to hone it. They're going to amend it. They're going to get it where it needs to be. And if you weigh in with your senators on the Senate side bill, that's great. I wouldn't
Dina
bother the
asked
House members because
who sponsored this Senate bill, Dina asked.
this is a proposed committee bill. So this is the Education Committee. The chair of the Education Committee is Senator Simon. I don't know that he's going to be sponsoring / running the bill. The committee is sponsoring the bill. So it'll be everyone on that committee. So that's where we're at. I think I had other things to maybe talk about or whatnot. I don't. I at this point I can't remember. We've gotten through. I can't believe we got through the entire bill in an hour. So I'm a little impressed with that, to be honest with you. There's so many phone calls to be made and things that we have to do, and I've got to go jump on that call and see if Brenda's off of that call yet, and then touch base with the House staff and get with the representatives that's helping sponsor our bill and see where we go with all of these different things. There's a
Can you
lot to
show real
accomplish.
quick, since you have the screen share up, show where the drop down is to find their senator if they want to reach out and
Yeah.
contact.
So if you go to information on our website, if you go to our website and you look in the menu, you see information and you go down, you can click find my senator, and that will take you right over to the flsenate.gov senators tab, and you can put in information there to find your senator. And so that's probably one of the if you're needing to figure out where do I even start. I know some people, I was there before as well, they don't know. Thank you for posting a link to the bill. I appreciate that, Stacy. Also, we do have some support initiatives. This is the part that I wanted to talk about. I never get to talk about these things because we're so busy in the legislative stuff. I ran into the 4-H club from down southern Florida. I can't remember the exact location. I'm such a bad person. They were such impressive kids. There were these little teenagers, and I'm sitting in listening to the pre-K 12 subcommittee bill budget, and I'm sitting there like watching, and then this group of kids comes and sits next to me, and then the parents that were leading them sat kind of right up in front, and I was just they were calm and quiet, and I thought, okay, cool. As soon as I stand up because the committee is over, one of them turns to me and puts his hands out and starts shaking it and talking to me about why they were there, and they were there for their 4-H club, and they're trying to get a funding to help fix it. It's important, and I was kind of impressed, and then I thought, you're homeschooled, aren't you? So I asked them, if they were homeschooled by chance, and every one of them said yes. And I was like, yeah, I knew it. They say we're not. They say we're socially inept, but it just doesn't hold up. So I pulled. We kind of walked out of the committee together and kind of grouped in a corner, and we took a picture. It was great. And I was talking with the moms that were there, and I was like, "Well, do y'all know Brenda Dickinson?" And they were like, "Oh my goodness, yes, we do know Brenda Dickinson." And I was like, "Well, I'm mentoring with her, and I'll be taking over for her whenever she retires this year." And they were like, "Oh, we've been praying about that. That's awesome!" And it was just so good to finally. These kids drilled me. They asked questions. It was what a wonderful experience it was, and how rare a moment. I usually sit up further in the committees, closer to the front. But today I was running just a tad late, so I sat in the back, and I specifically sat in the middle. Then I had started to sit on the left, but then sat in the middle. And then when I sat down, they moved and sat next to me, and I was just like, this moment was orchestrated. Like this moment was made to be and guided to be. But they were also excited about the Discord channel and some opportunities that they could have to volunteer with what we're doing, and it was great. We talked to them. I talked to them a little bit about the Tell Your Story project and the challenges with, you know, home education not always being understood. And they immediately got it and they were excited. They're like, oh, we could make videos and we could do this. And then we could talk about this and we could put video of that behind it. And I'm like, yay. Now just make sure you do it and upload it. I can't wait to see them. So little things like that, they propel me forward. And I love the excitement that they had on their faces, and I loved running into them. And they ask great questions, and they're thinkers. And it was just so what a great representation of homeschoolers in the state of Florida you were for coming. If this video gets around to you, thank you. It was a pleasure to meet with you and have time to spend with you. And if anyone else is coordinating their homeschool groups, their 4-H clubs that are homeschoolers or whatever, to come to the Capitol while you're rolling, please email me. I would love to come chat with you. We live pretty close, so I'm in and out of the Capitol right now, especially during session all the time. I even had a day last week where I went to the Capitol and then I came home and I got all of my suit and everything off, and I was ready to kind of like just sit in front of my computer and do work. And then I got a phone call like, hey, can you come back to the Capitol and meet with so and so? And I was like, absolutely, I'll be right there. And I had to throw my whole suit and everything back on. It's just you never know what's going to happen, or who you're going to meet, or who you're going to run into. And I'm always up there. It's wild and crazy. And if you're up there with one of your homeschool groups, or you're coming through with a 4-H club, but you got, let me know, communicate with me, info@flhef.org. Just send me the dates and times you guys are going to be up there, and a point of contact. So maybe we can run into each other and chat for a minute or two. I love to see your faces and hear from you. It's truly awesome. And then of course, if you are someone who loves what we do, you do need to know that all of our funding comes from support that we're able to raise. So if you are a supporter, thank you. Thank you very much. And if you're not a supporter, I ask you to become one and support the work that we do. And if you have a community that, could be fired up about this, share our podcast with them, share our information, our website. We can do town hall meetings. We have all the technology that we need to do virtual town hall meetings or deep dives into certain things. Or if you have new homeschoolers who have questions about what their rights are, or how does it work, or what do they need to know, we offer opportunities to do all kinds of work groups and things like that. And we don't charge for any of that. So it is something that we do that is just fully funded by support. So it's not fully funded yet, but is solely, let me say that is solely funded by support. And so help us reach our goals so that we can do that. And I have plans for being able to bring on internships and interns and give them real world experience on different programs and initiatives and things that we're working on. So there's a lot. If you have any questions, reach out to us. I don't have anything else. I feel like it's been a great day. We've covered a lot. Crystal, is there anything else that you think we
I
need
think
to get
so.
to? Okay. Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for being a part of what we do. We want to thank our top sponsors one more time. We always do this at the beginning and the end. We thank Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, TBHC Group. Conference and convention season is right up on us. It might be too late if you haven't already registered for your FPEA ticket, but definitely check out TBHC's conference and the FPEA convention. There's so much. They're in two different parts of the state, so they're both great and worth going to. There's so much rich information, and check them out. They are our supporters, our top sponsors. So thank you all for being with us, and we'll let you have your Monday back and touch base again next Monday or in the live forum for additional updates on how things progress with the language and the issues that we're working on. And just want you to know that you do have a voice in the Capitol that's there for you. And until next week, you guys enjoy your Monday.